The way this works is I'm just here to answer questions. So, any questions that you have regarding ProLine, setting up ProLine, using ProLine, let me know. You can put it in the Q&A at the bottom of Zoom, and we will go from there. Mhm. Rolando, anything you think we should go over today?
Not specifically, but I could ask a few questions.
Yeah, what you got?
Um, so what determines, aside from the popularity or the demand for a feature request, what determines if a feature request, especially integrations, might make it into ProLine? And adding to that, what are some integrations that will never make it to ProLine?
Um, well, to start, uh, it's just a combination of how many people are asking for it, how valuable is it to ProLine from a sales perspective. So we both want to build things that our users want, and then also want to build things that potential users also want, um, and are necessary for that. And then also it comes down to the difficulty. If something's easy to build and we have a lot of people asking for it, then we're gonna just knock it out. Um, if it's very hard to build, but then we have a lot of demand for it and we feel that it would be very valuable for our sales efforts, then we're probably going to prioritize it anyway, even if it's really hard to build. So it's just a balance of all that. Um, and so sometimes you'll see things that are features that get requested that may only have one or two votes, but they're just like they're super easy features and they're really good ideas. And so sometimes we'll just fast track those and just knock them out. An example of this is John Starry made a suggestion about simplifying the measurements, the measurement calculations, and um, we didn't even put that to a vote. We just put it out there. We just got it done because it was a really good idea. It really helped us to make it easier for new companies to adopt ProLine. And so and it was something that it wasn't necessarily easy per se, but it was like a 24-hour turnaround where we were able to just knock it out. So stuff like that sometimes will get fast tracked. But then, 24 hours is still a lot of time um, to devote from a dev perspective. If you break it down on hourly costs, that's a lot of money. And so we're only going to do that if it's something that has an immediate, that is either extremely high demand or has an immediate benefit um, to our business efforts at ProLine. So it's a balance of those things. As far as integrations with other partners, it's just a completely case by case basis, like integrations with other platforms. It's partly based on demand, partly it's based on do those platforms even integrate? Because some of them don't. Some of them don't allow, or some of them have a very they don't let everybody integrate with them. They only have certain people that they let integrate based on certain metrics, and we may not hit those, so we may not be allowed to integrate with them for some reason or another. Some platforms, the only platforms I'll say that we like would never integrate with are platforms that we are partially and or um, increasingly competitive with. So anything else that's a CRM platform to any extent, we're not going to build an integration with, even if they might offer other solutions like measurements or other like marketing or something that people may still want to use that we don't quite have covered in ProLine, but because we're competitive across the majority of the platform, we're not going to integrate with them. So, um,
And do you review each and every single feature request submitted?
yeah, every feature request that goes into our features page. So this is super unique to ProLine is that we have this is like my admin side. Share this again. So every idea that comes through here that's submitted, I personally review. I'm the only I manage our entire dev effort, and so I set our roadmap and what we're going to be working on and what we're not going to be working on. So every single thing that comes through here, I personally review and and then make decisions on where it falls based off of. I mean, I will say like the votes are a huge factor here. So if like add visual reports, we're working on this right now. Part of the reason that we're working on this right now is because of the votes. It's a big part of it. It's also valuable for our sales effort, but so this is very high. This referral tracking system is something that we're going to think about more, but it's not something that we even though it has a lot of votes, it's not there's so many other solutions for tracking referrals that it's something that we may just look at building a partnership with somebody else to sort of address that and having a recommended partner for it because some things really need to be in the CRM. They don't make sense to have outside the CRM. Some things are just don't add a lot of value being inside the CRM, and that's what we're leaning towards on this. But we are actively working on QuickBooks payments and invoice syncing as well. So these two are very high, and this one's queued up, but these two are in development. So um, that should give an idea. All right, I have a question here from Justin. He said he's on the fence between ProLine and Builder Prime. Can you add all job costs per job similar to how AccuLynx allows this? Yes, we have a very robust budgeting system. Let me share my screen on that. All right, so when you quote a job, so there's two different budgets in ProLine. There's the budget planner, and then there's the budget. The budget is this tab here. So you have a tab here for budget, but then you also have the budget planner, which is inside of each quote. So as you're building a quote, you can go to the budget planner and you can play around with different scenarios. You know, if they choose this option or that option or this upgrade, you can play around with the different scenarios and you can see how that plays out from a job cost standpoint, from a tax standpoint, commission standpoint, and what that final price would look like. And you don't have to have all these options. This is just how we typically have our quotes set up. You could certainly have a single option and then most projects are not multi-structure like this. Most of them are going to be a single structure. So you have the planning budget here. And this is going to help make sure that you're selling jobs that are going to be profitable, or at least that you project are going to be profitable based on the costs that you've put into your price list. And then once a quote is signed, then it goes to then that gets populated automatically for you into the budget. So everything that's being used to calculate that budget planner gets automatically pushed into the cost line item area for you, and then you can edit as needed. Then as you have any other expenses that might come up during the process of a job, you can simply add those costs as you go, including uploading the receipts. So you can put the amount in, when it was paid slash due, the type that it falls under, the name, and you can add unlimited types as well. So you can really expand that. And then you can go back and review the receipts. And so you have all that record there. And so you can have a complete breakdown of cost on every single job that is accurate based on what every single invoice was, what the permits were, labor was. Everything should match out and have a matching invoice or receipt if you upload those. And then here under project analysis, you have the revenue, which is going to come from the billing tab. So you can either enter payments manually that are check or cash, or you can process payments through ProLine. Those all show up in the same place. And then you can see what that breaks down. You have the revenue, you have your costs, you have any taxes or commissions, and then you have how that breaks down from a actual gross profit and gross margin. So this one, someone was in here playing around with it. So just going to delete that there. So with that deleted, let's take usually a second to update. We have, yeah, so our costs have now adjusted. So we have a 10% gross margin on that job. And we can see how that breaks down here. And so, yeah, hopefully that helps. Um, we just launched this beginning of this month, and so we're still collecting feedback on it. So if you have ideas on how it could be better, easier to use, more clear, that's stuff to put into the idea page here. And like I said, I review all that, and stuff. It's not as straightforward as just like the most votes gets worked on. Those votes certainly do play a big role. It's also just ease, like how quick of an ad is it? So if you have a pretty straightforward change that you would like to see here on this budget tab, that may be implemented in as little as 24 hours. We've done many 24-hour turnarounds on feature requests, just because of how efficient and quickly we work on the development side. So thanks for the question, Justin. Feel free to follow that up if you have any other questions. Okay. Does anybody else have questions?
Yeah. Do you have a referral program for your customers, ProLine customers?
Oh, a referral program. Wait, are you talking about what I just talked about with the referral, or are you talking about something else?
Something that's for ProLine customers, not for referrals from their customers, but for ProLine customers.
Are you saying do we have an affiliate program for our customers to use to refer other people to ProLine?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have two. We have an affiliate program and we have a referral program. So, for referrals, if you refer another company to ProLine, I'll just pull up the articles here. So this is actually a really good time to go over this. We have all of this in our documentation. And we have it all together in a how to pay less for ProLine. So we get this question sometimes. How do I pay less for ProLine? So we made an article on it. There's 3 different things you can do. So one is the credit for content program, where you can send us the video content that you already should be filming for your business. And if you send that to us so that we can reuse it on our social platforms, then we give you credit for that towards your ProLine plan. For referrals, if you refer other contractors to ProLine, and they do complete onboarding, then we give you a $500 credit towards your ProLine account. And then if you would prefer to actually get paid directly for companies that you refer to ProLine, you can apply and register for our affiliate program. And the affiliate program, if you apply for the affiliate program, then you can't do the normal referral program. So it's either referral or affiliate, not both. But if you do want to get actually paid money rather than ProLine credit, you can do the affiliate partner program. It's 15% of the first year revenue on anyone that you refer, and you get a special discount code that's only for you that you can give out to companies you refer that gives them 50% off their first month. So there's the affiliate as well. And then yeah, so those are the three different ways that um, you can pay less for ProLine and offset the cost of your ProLine account. I got another question here. Um, John says, there a way to crop the photos on the cover page on ProLine quotes? The answer to that is not currently. So if you need to crop that, you'll have to do it outside of ProLine before it moves into ProLine. It's not out of the question that we could add that, but that is a pretty substantial feature add, unfortunately. Like adding cropping functionality inside of ProLine. So but if you add it to the ideas page, I'll push it through, and if it gets enough votes, then that's something that we would prioritize. Um, we'll just have to probably set aside a week or two to get it working, which is which slows us down a lot of other things. So okay. Any other questions? Anything else we can go over?
Yes, I do have a question about inactivity campaigns. Are the ones that you can set reminders for the teammates for them to complete certain tasks or follow up on a client when X amount of days have gone through without any activity? I know that there's a lot of ways in which you can do this, but what will be your approach, like the shortest, most efficient approach for this?
So the question you're asking to remind the sales rep to follow up after a certain number of days of inactivity?
Yes.
Okay. So it depends on what part of the process. Um, there's not a direct way to accomplish this, but we have to kind of step it back and look at what is the goal. And the goal here would be to make sure that people get followed up with properly, right? That's the actual goal that we're shooting towards. So with that in mind, depending on the part of the process, it would be a completely case by case basis. But if we look at the quote sent stage, which is typically the stage where you're sending sales follow up, if you want to have a sales rep follow up manually at certain points and you want to remind them to do this, then you can just go into your sales follow up campaign that you have run at this stage, and then you can add in a task and just say give okay, and I can move this up in the campaign. And if it's in a sales follow-up campaign like this, I'd probably want to group it in with a text and email. And so could just leave it in there like that. So after that second follow-up here after 3 days, it's also creating a task to manually make a call to follow up. So that's one approach here around sales follow-up. But we'll look at a different scenario. So maybe the scenario is if somebody is in one/approved for more than 3 days or something. So maybe the scenario is, people in your ProLine account are going to sit in that stage for one approved until they get scheduled for a job. And if you have a backlog, they might sit there for an extended period of time. And so you would just, in the campaign again that you're triggering here, you could add in any number of these tasks. So here's an example of some tasks here, but I could add additional tasks and say the same thing as I did before. Let them know we haven't forgotten about them. A project assignee is going to be the sales rep in most cases, or it could be assigned to a specific team member. If you want it to always be assigned to a team member, for example, like a production manager or something, could do that as well. And then we could say, after 5 days. There we go. Okay. So after 5 days, create that task. And so that way, we're reminding in this case, the project assignee, which is typically the sales rep, to follow up. So we can add as many of those as we want. So we can have this every 5 days, every 3 days, every 2 days, complete flexibility. So, that's one of the things that we made a conscious decision about with ProLine is we don't want to tell people how to run their business. We will set up your ProLine account when you create a ProLine account, with the defaults that are our recommendations, but ProLine is customizable beyond any other platform I've seen in the contracting space. And that allows you to run your business your way. And so we don't have something where you can just like turn on whenever someone's inactive for a certain amount of time, create a task. Seems like a cool feature for a different type of platform that really locks down, but not everybody wants to run their business that way or have that feature. And so ProLine is customizable. And so if that's something that a company wants to have be part of their process, they can build that out, but it is going to be on a stage by stage, campaign by campaign basis. But that's really the way it should be, because the rules around when you want to remind someone to follow up in this one approved stage are going to be different than in the quote sent stage. So that customizability is actually nice because you can really tailor everything to each part of the process and make sure that both the manual actions that need to take place and the automated actions are all happening together properly. Justin asks, is there a customer dashboard portal where customers can access to submit payments, photos, and documents? We don't have this at this time. It is something that we will have in the future because it is something that gets asked for a lot. But there's the reason that we haven't prioritized it. That's the only reason that we're adding it, is because a lot of people want it coming in. But I think my experience with the companies I've worked with, and most of the companies that I have talked to that have previously used something like a customer dashboard or portal, is that your customers don't care. They don't look at it. They want to communicate directly with you, and ProLine facilitates that communication already. And so you can already, one of the first things that we're doing that we're actually going to have done in the coming weeks is the ability to share folders from the files area. And so you're going to be able to share galleries and this should be launched by end of this month. Share galleries over text message, share a link, a really clean, nice link that's all the photos of their project, for example, and be able to share that with them so that they can pull that up and look at it. And then everything else currently exists separately. So if you send a quote, that they're going to get a link over text directly to that quote. If you send an invoice, it's going to send a link for the invoice directly over text that they can just click and pay the invoice. And everything that I've seen and my co-founder's company, our investors' companies that are all in the roofing space, this is what customers prefer. They're just are not going to use any kind of portal or dashboard. That doesn't mean that they, there's not a way to do it where it might be valuable. And it doesn't stop everyone from wanting it, which is why we will eventually have it. But the way that we have it set up now, everyone is mostly in agreement is the right way to do it. But especially with the folders being added, it is not a big jump to go from there to having that. And so we plan to have that probably by end of year. I believe it's in the feature idea area already. Let's see. Yeah, so it's in here. It doesn't have a ton of votes, but it looks like half the votes are from our sales team because our sales team wants it because people ask for it. But the it is something that we're gonna have by end of year. But it hasn't been a blocker for our customers typically. So hopefully that answers your question. But we will have it. We will have it in time. All right. Any other questions? Anything else to go over today? All right. I think we will wrap up there then. Thanks everybody for joining. Unless anyone has any last second questions, I'll leave a few more seconds. Justin says, is there an open API key to connect to website contact forms? Yes. So there is it doesn't work as we don't have an open API. But what we do have is we have 3 different integrations that help with this. So website, and yep. So you can easily, there's 3 different methods for integrating your website and landing pages and forms to ProLine. One of them is through a webhook, which is, I think that's what you're asking for when you say an open API key, is really a webhook. And so we have a webhook system that accepts incoming contact forms into ProLine. So we have a step-by-step guide for setting that up. You can also just generate a form inside of ProLine. We have embedded contact forms. So if you go into integrations, web forms, you can generate your own web forms that you can just embed onto your website that are just natively connected back to ProLine. And so you don't have to worry about any kind of forming the parameters correctly for the webhook, which can be a pain. So you have that option if you want to go that direction. And then lastly, there's always Zapier. So we have by far the most robust Zapier application of any CRM in the contracting space. And so the connections that can be made through Zapier are limitless. So like 95% of websites and landing pages can be connected using either the web leads or the web forms integration. And then anything else, that little 5% on the end, all of those are going to be through Zapier. So with this, there's 99.9% of lead sources are going to be connectable through ProLine. Um, Another question from Justin. Great. One last question. Is there a good way to import all my client info from AccuLinks? So I just got done actually today working on this onboarding guide, which you might want to go through. So this goes through all the steps of onboarding, and of course, our onboarding team will guide you through this. But in here is actually importing, and so we have a complete guide on how to um, get your data out of another system and import it into ProLine. ProLine, we're very robust on this front, so we accept we're very flexible on the incoming data. It doesn't mean that all the data is going to transfer over, but you can certainly import it. The kind of the main question there is, can you get your data out of AccuLinks? And it's a pain, but many companies have done it. You do it through their reporting system, if I remember correctly. And so you go in there and you create reports, and then you can export those reports as CSV files that include project information, contact information, all of that. But AccuLinks is pretty notorious for making it difficult to export your data. And so be aware of that going in, that a lot of you're just not going to be able to transfer a lot of it, unfortunately. Things like the budgets in AccuLinks are not going to transfer, your estimates that are in AccuLinks. Some of your job costs and overall revenue values may transfer over. We have the ability to import those, but there is, just because of the limitations with AccuLinks and how they like to hang on to data. It is challenging, but certainly possible. So everything um, in the major stuff can be exported. So like all your project names, the contact information associated with those projects, all of that stuff can get exported and imported into ProLine. You may be able to also export some of the activity. So like the activity history on projects, we have the ability to import it. And I believe they have like an activity report or something that you can access in AccuLinks and then export. But it is a little bit challenging. But look for, it's, if I remember correctly, it's like in their settings, and then you got to go to like reports. Um, it's been, I haven't touched AccuLinks. Just a disclaimer, I have not touched AccuLinks or been inside an AccuLinks account since we became competitive with them. So I'm remembering back to when we were non-competitive and we had just just a automation tool. We had only our campaign system, and we integrated with AccuLinks at that time. So it's been now like years since I've been inside an AccuLinks account. But I do know that other companies have done it, and I've seen it myself and done it. It's just been a long, long time since I exported data from there. Yeah. The other thing here is, like, if you really put pressure on their support should help you. Like, they're gonna drag their feet. They don't want to make it easy on you. But if you're like, especially if you frame it correctly and you're like, hey, I'm looking for how to export like lists of project information for reporting. And you don't just say, hey, I need to go to this other platform. How do I move all my data? Like, depending on how you frame it, you may get good answers out of their support. So that also may be something to do. Because I've heard there's also people that have said, oh, I talked to AccuLink support and I asked how to export all my data, and they said that I couldn't do it. And that's just not true. Like, you can. It's just that not all of it can be exported, and they frame it as like, this is your reporting data, not your project information. So just keep that in mind, that like when you're talking to their support, um their support is not necessarily the most highly trained, so they may misunderstand intentionally or unintentionally what you're asking. Okay. Absolutely. All right. So let's wrap up there.